Welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies, everybody. I'm José.
I'm Mike. Can I start us off?
Yeah, start us off.
We've seen Downsizing. I left twice.
Yes.
Obviously, spoilers will be
No
coming up.
discipline.
No, well, obviously spoilers will be coming up. But the main thing I want to impress on you is this is the first time I'm just going to come out and say, don't see this film.
I never want to say that.
I know, but unfortunately I have to.
Yes,
because I have some level of social responsibility.
Well, I don't know about that.
The reason I left twice was to go and make notes on my phone, because there was so much stuff coming up that I knew I would want to bring up.
Yes.
And when I left, I was only hanging out by the side of the screen so that people, I wouldn't distract people with my phone. So I was still kind of watching the movie half, sort of just getting what's going on. But I wasn't missing anything. I mean, I came back and the film was in the same place as already. It's so... There's going to be swearing. It's so fucking...
You're such a wimp.
It's so fucking boring.
It was really boring.
Really boring. And,
well,
and the other thing I did was
fair.
I checked my phone. I googled the movie when I was out there just to see how long it would be, and it was 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and you kept checking your watch.
Yeah, I mean, the first hour was pretty excruciating. It was really dull. You didn't know where it was going. It was so earnest.
It improved.
But it did improve.
Barely.
It improved.
Yeah, it never became good.
No, the thing is, it was so earnest all throughout, really. And
so let's say what it's about. Downsizing is about, in the future, you can become 5 inches tall.
Yes.
And isn't that kooky and weird and funny? It's along the lines of... It's got like a kind of being John Malkovich thing going on, right? It's like this one thing that... How does it affect people?
But, well, anyway, I think there's more than that, right?
Yeah.
So the thesis of the film is that there's overpopulation, we're creating too much methane gas, the polar ice is continuing to melt, and basically these scientists have discovered this method of shrinking down people so that basically 3 years of waste ends up in a little tiny bin bag. And so you decrease waste. On the other hand, along with being good for the environment, the assets that a middle-class person has in the normal world becomes a millionaire's kind of assets, when everybody's shrunk down.
Yeah, so the main characters, Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig, they're a married couple, and they have about $150,000, which translates into $12.5 million.
That's right.
When they're tiny.
That's right.
And so there's this aspirational aspect.
There is, you can have the lifestyle you always dreamed of if you shrink down to 5 inches.
Mansions covered in gold.
That's, pretty much. Which I thought all of that aspect of the plot was like really weird and kind of stupid and seemed to contravene the main thesis of the film, because basically kind of the film was on the one hand it seemed to be saying, consumerism has led to the planet almost becoming extinct, and on the other hand it's saying, but you can have your McMansion, right? So I just kind of, and actually going into the film I just thought from the trailer, what a stupid time to make this film. I mean, we're living in the decade after the crash in which, millions of people in the US lost their homes, right? So, this idea of shrinking down kind of, it didn't make any sense to me, though. Of course, once you see the film, you realize that in this shrunken down world, there's also an underclass of people, Mexicans mostly, who are watching Cantinflas films in a slum, on the outskirts of this ideal world that was sold to everybody.
There's a hard border,
to
go through this tunnel to get to the outside, and that's where the slums are.
Yes, there's a Trump.
This is where the film starts to improve, where it starts talking about this underclass and how you haven't really solved your problems by doing this.
Until then, it just feels so dumb. There's not an ounce of excitement, really.
No.
I mean, I love what's his name? This star,
Matt Damon.
I love Matt Damon, you know, and he's actually incredibly good in this. Like, there are moments where, you know, you can see the depression on his face. Yeah, he kind of walks through the whole first hour of the film depressed, and he's brilliant, really. But actually, watching a depressed person walk through the film for like an hour was just like death. I mean, you know, there seemed to be nothing going on, and you wondered why everything was taking so long.
Yeah, there's an aspect to the film of showing you everything. Like, if someone has to, if someone's going to walk from one room to another, you see the whole walk.
Yeah.
You know, you see an entire bus journey, and like there's no compactness. I mean, on the one hand, it establishes what the world is like that they live in, and the various worlds that people inhabit, like when they're big and when they're small and when they go to the slum. So like there's some value in taking the time to show the environments, but it does it so much, and there's so much emphasis on detail.
Yes.
That it really drags far too much.
Yes, actually, I think that's a very good point. You see every last thing. So, you know, you see Matt Damon at work in his dead-end job. You see him at home. You see him feeding his mother. He's a nice bloke. And actually, you see all these boring actions kind of boringly completed to the end. You think they're never going to end.
This
right?
is it. The film is talking about what a boring life is like, or what a kind of depressed middle class existence is like. But it kind of captures it so well that the film is fucking boring.
Yes. it was really. I think it's the most boring film I've seen this year.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I think it's poorly directed, right? But I think it's not by mistake. Like, it's not incompetent. I think the film looks and the film's tone is exactly what it's meant to be.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think he's made mistakes. Alexander Payne,
So
the
he just
director,
wants to torture the audience with boredom.
I don't think he's made mistakes in what he's doing. I think he's made exactly the film that he wants to make. That's how it comes across. It comes across as quite controlled.
Well, he's an idiot.
But all the decisions, I think, are wrong.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, I also think it's not a very bright thesis on it.
No.
You know, so, you know, it doesn't look particularly great. It actually, considering the theme that it has, it should have been full of like striking imagery that made you think. And actually, it has very little.
Remember Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yes.
And how that was all about, like, how cool life is, how different things are when you're small. Like, it's an exciting thing.
Yes.
And actually, if you took most of the shots from this film, apart from the fact that they're always talking about being small, you wouldn't know that they're small, right? Like, they're on a boat later on in the film. And there is nothing to tell you that they are small people. These are just people on a boat.
I wanted some bird to come and eat them.
Right, exactly. Like, you want a leaf to go past, or a fish, or something. Like, just saying that tells you that there are small people. These are small people in the world. It's bizarre that there is no effort to do that.
Yeah,
and actually, the trailer makes it so much more exciting. Like, this thing about the big bottles of vodka.
Yeah.
Or you know, actually, it's pretty much just the big bottles of vodka. But I mean, I was thinking, because I was excited for this film from the trailer. The trailer made it look quite good. And do you remember how Suicide Squad was terrible? Well, you actually liked Suicide Squad.
Well.
But Suicide Squad, they got the guys who cut the trailer to come in and cut the film, famously. And that made the film into just this like hour and a half long music video, which was awful and had no coherence. And I thought, actually, that's what they needed for this, because the trailer for this actually looked good. And the film is so slow and boring. And actually, the film makes jokes that were funny in the trailer into completely flat moments in this.
Yeah.
There's that bit on where they haven't downsized yet, but they're on the kind of bus to go to the downsizing place, and there are small people sitting opposite them in small kind of seats. And he says, "Oh, are you downsizing?" He says, "Yeah. Are you nervous? A little." You know, and the joke is he says little, right? And that was funny in the trailer. And in this, it's like the line is extended and made not funny.
Yeah.
There are actually plenty of moments like that.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I don't know how he managed it.
Yes. It was a huge disappointment. And actually, I think kind of the whole thing about it is that it's so plodding and earnest and unimaginative and actually just not intelligent enough, you know, to kind of warrant. So it's making this thesis film, and actually you just think it's kind of dumb, really.
Yeah.
You know, with all the issues that are going on at the moment, it could have connected kind of so well with environmental issues, with the question of overpopulation. It makes really dull, earnest efforts to create an interracial romance you know, but you see it coming for miles, right? Like
the film is so obvious.
Yeah.
Everything about it is obvious.
Everything, you know, and actually to the point where you notice stuff before the protagonist does, and it's not deliberate, you know. So it was just awful.
It's bad storytelling, and like there's that one bit where he's watching BBC News. They introduce this Vietnamese character who becomes the love interest, who is this woman who was a dissident who was speaking out against
the government,
something bad
flooding. Yeah,
that's right.
And she was jailed for 2 years, and
she was downsized and then brought to. She was kind of smuggled into America in a TV box, box that a TV came in, and the way you find out about this is Matt Damon sits down and watches BBC News.
Yes.
Like, the film has no better way of giving you information than by just putting the telly on.
I know.
It's awful storytelling.
It's awful. I mean, there were a couple of moments where... What's the Austrian actor?
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz comes in, and Udo Kier, whom, you know, I haven't seen for decades, and, you know, and they really brighten up the film, actually. They bring some energy and some, you know, some spice, and also some cynicism into the film, which is badly needed, you know, but it's really just not enough.
Yeah, I barely even felt that. I think the film is also quite tokenistic. The film goes to these pains to show people of different ethnicities. So, like, when downsizing is announced at the start of the film that this process has been discovered or created, then there's this montage of people around the world seeing the news. So there's white people in America, and there's black people in Africa, and tribes, and there's Asian people, and like all these people reading the news, and it's so actually the film is just built out of these stereotypes. It keeps going on. So right at the end, when you've got the original colonists, who are these Norwegians, you've got, like, sitting at the head table is a black guy and a black woman and an Asian guy and a Mexican and a white. It's like doing nothing. You're just sitting there, kind of showing a great range of people.
Yes, because the only person who gets to speak is, like, you know, Mr. Norse God, scientist, white guy. You know.
And that's part of it, right? So, like, you've got a Norwegian Nobel Prize winning scientist, and you've got an Eastern European sort of smuggler who wears tracksuits, and you've got Vietnamese cleaners. It's like, actually, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's offensive, but it's unimaginative. The film is built out of these stereotypes that you just don't... You're sort of not meant to really question. It's like, well, this is what people who are like this are like.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like the film kind of striving for diversity, but actually doesn't respect anyone.
No. And there were moments where we just laughed out loud at some of the things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they were.
There was a point where there's this thing about butterflies. The Vietnamese likes butterflies, and then right at the end of the film, butterflies show up when they're having a love moment.
It's so heavy-handed.
And obviously the butterflies are giant. It's like one of the few moments in the film where the small people are actually shown to be small.
Yes.
And it was happening, and I was just looking at you, and you eventually noticed me looking at you and just burst out laughing. Just like I wanted to see what your reaction to that was.
Yeah, well, it was a groan, basically.
There's another problem I have with the film, which is how does the world work, right? So, like, there's this talk about travelling between countries, and how does that really work? Like, so Leisureland, which is where Matt Damon's character moves to, is it's like a tabletop sort of like Warhammer sort of board game type world, right? It's like it's housed in a huge building because these are massive places, but the people are tiny. So these buildings are, or these worlds are housed within buildings, which are ultimately controlled by regular sized people still.
Yes.
So you'd think like they'd be kind of under the thumb somehow, or there'd be some interaction between them in the real world. But it's like the film seems to be suggesting that they're kind of self-sustaining communities. I don't really know how.
Yes.
How do you travel from Leisureland in America to the original colony in Norway? Like, there's talk about now airlines have small seating, for instance. But it's like, okay, I get that an airline can carry small people. But how do you get from where you are to the airline? Like, this is a big deal. Like, you're 14 times smaller than you were. Yes. It's a big undertaking. There's no sense of that, right? How this world could actually physically work. And the reason is that it's just too stupid.
The yacht gets moved around by parcel force.
Yeah. Well, it's fucking stupid. It's like... And I thought there would be something... There's an opportunity for... I mean, I thought there'd be something great. Like, you can have some kid break into the facility and then start trampling stuff like Godzilla. I thought that would be funny. But that was already done in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. But there's nothing like that. Like, you think that there would be some interaction between the normal sized world and the tiny world, but it just kind of disappears. And again, this is the thing of how the film really has no interest in developing the small world as small. It's just like, when you become small, the world that it then shows might as well be the regular sized world.
Well, I think that's part of the theme of the film, that in fact there's been no change, right? So, he's lost his wife, he's lost a better job and whatever, he's now living in a flat and he's at this dead-end job. So actually, I think that is part of the point of the whole first part of the film.
I agree.
That he shrinks, but actually nothing changes, his life doesn't improve. Though there is a conflict that's set up early on in the film where the guy at the bar says, you should only get a quarter of the vote. You're only paying a quarter of the taxes, blah, blah, blah. You should only get a quarter of the vote. And I thought, this is potentially interesting, right? That's a kind of a potential conflict that might arise later on in the film. But actually, they never touch on it again.
This is one of the other notes that I made when I went outside, is that there are so many thematic kind of gestures made towards different things. So there's the idea of that kind of racism towards small people. I mean, the thing about getting 1/8 of a vote seems to me a direct reference to the 3/5 compromise in America. The idea that some people are worth less than others, and it's kind of a new version of that. But the film basically goes in that direction and then stops immediately. There's the idea that it's a kind of midlife crisis thing.
Yes.
It's like getting a jag when you're 45 years old. It's like, this is the new version of that, right? The idea of it kind of fixing money problems. You become rich when you're small, and there's so much effort taken to show that Matt Damon is living a kind of what's the word, like a not unfortunate even. It's like just a regular kind of vaguely poor guy's life, because that's pretty much how everyone in America, the middle class has become so compressed and poor that's how people like him who just have regular jobs are living now.
Yes.
The idea that it will solve your money problems and like offer you a solution. The idea of it being a kind of lifestyle solution that's ultimately exclusively for rich people is that in there. The idea of middle class people being smug about how much they're helping the environment. Like when everyone was buying Toyota Prices when they came out, and they're all congratulating each other on what a great job for the environment they were doing, and it being really about showing off what a good person you were.
Yes, there's a real kind of anti-middle class do-gooder theme in this film. Like all that bongo dancing at sunset was like,
But there are all these ideas that kind of are interesting ideas on their own, but they don't converge. You get the impression, at least in the first hour, that the film is trying to build a kind of tapestry of these themes, and it's just failing completely.
Yes. It was really, really dull.
It's just gestures towards those ideas rather than complete themes.
Yes. The only thing that I liked about the film was Matt Damon's performance. And actually I think it's nice to see him, middle-aged and fumbling and not too bright, and particularly in contrast to what are the action films that the Bourne films.
Oh yeah.
So I thought he was great, but it was nowhere near enough. And actually I hate that so many of his choices recently have been like these earnest do-gooder films. So instead of striving to make, art, he's kind of choosing projects that kind of will improve the world. Like, they're nanny films really, or nanny-ish films. And this is kind of an example of that, really. It's kind of completely bland and completely boring. It's kind of like nursery food for the brain.
I can't emphasise how boring it is. I really can't. Like I'd say, There's one other time that I've left a movie before just to check how long it was, which was when I saw The Hobbit, because nothing happened for the first 40 minutes of that film, because they were just fucking having dinner and throwing plates around and going, what the fuck is happening in this film? And so I went out, just hung around by the side, looked up the movie, said, it's 2.5 hours long or whatever it is, and Peter Jackson running time. And then I looked up the plot to see if anything was going to happen. And it turned out that while I was looking that up, the thing that happened in the film happened, so I missed it. I think they fight like a big rock monster or something, and then it goes away. And I also looked up to see if Gollum was going to show up, because I thought that might have some life in it. And this was the same thing. I rarely leave movies. I left the Tenacious D movie half an hour in, and I wanted to leave Rock and Roller, but other people were with me, and so I had to sort of stick around. Those are the only times that I've left or wanted to leave movies, and this was another one where I would have been happy to leave, but I thought, well, you've got to stick it out really. But 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's so unnecessary. It doesn't need that. You know what I mean? And for a film that was being sold as a comedy,
yes,
where there was one laugh, and I don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
one genuine laugh for me.
There were a couple of unintentional ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really hated the Vietnamese character. I really hated the Vietnamese woman. I hated the way that the character was conceptualized. So it's so unbelievable stereotypical. So it's like this woman who works kind of nonstop, right? She takes on all these cleaning jobs, and she's a bit of a harridan, and she's constantly busy, and she bosses everyone around, and so she's this combination of like Mother Teresa helping all the poor, and then also like a kind of a harridan, really. And I just hated it.
I kind of hated that, but I didn't care enough. I mean, and also the way that she spoke and was kind of officious reminded me a little bit of my friend José, who was the one who gave us that recording of Jajanku, I think his name was.
Who I don't even want to go there.
No, but she just reminded me of her because like the way that she treats me is basically exactly the same way that the Vietnamese character treated Matt Damon in this. Which is basically pretty much just like slapping me and having a go. But I that kind of tickled me, I guess. Like I just thought there was something I kind of recognised about that. Although I think it's kind of overdone, like the way that her command of English. I don't know how realistic her command of English is really. Like she doesn't speak in full sentences. But she knows a lot of words, and I guess it kind of makes sense. But it did seem I didn't know how offended I should be by it.
Yes, I thought it was very stereotypical, and so on the one hand it was very stereotypical. On the other hand, you felt that the film was trying to do all of these worthy things with it that you support, but it was so obvious that it was annoying, and part of what was annoying was that it was, because it was doing it in these particular ways, it was doing it unsuccessfully, right? So, I think
there's a way to edit this film that actually makes it better. I think I could sit down, I mean, I'm going to sound very arrogant here, but I think I could sit down with this movie as it stands and cut it in a way that makes it a little bit more exciting. Like, I think actually there is material in there that could be shaped in a way that is more... I'm not saying it would ever be a perfect film. I think it has its problems. Has real problems. I mean, I don't like it.
So are you blaming the editors then? Or are you blaming the editing? Or are you blaming the director?
Well, I mean, I think it's the director's call ultimately, isn't it? So the director says, like, I want it to be like this, and he has his sense of what the tone is. It's not... because, like I say, the film, in terms of its kind of craft... is not imaginative and it's not original, but it's kind of competent. Like it's not full of mistakes. But
I didn't think it was so competent. I mean, there wasn't a dazzling shot in the whole movie.
No, sure, but what I mean is it's not full of kind of obvious mistakes. It's just full of bad decisions, I think. And I think ultimately that lies with the director. The director, I think, to me, it seems quite clear that the director has made the film he wants to make, and I think he wanted to make a bad film.
What do you mean he wanted to make
I think the film that he wanted to make is a bad film.
Okay, that's different. So he wanted to make a
I don't think he didn't he didn't set out with the idea that I'll make a bad film to show them.
Everyone.
No, like he thought it was a good film.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks he nailed it.
Well, we can say different. So, I don't like saying don't go see it because, I do think that there are things that are worthy and interesting. So the worthy bits are all the boring bits, really, and I think they're very badly handled. But there are moments that kind of break away from it a little bit, and I think they're all Matt Damon's moments. That would be my view.
Yeah, there's so few and far between. I mean, I ultimately agree with you that I generally don't want to tell people not to see something, but like there are so many better ways to spend your time, and there are so many films that hit similar sort of themes in so much better ways. And then the central idea of Downsizing like should be funny and should be interesting, and it isn't in any way.
No, it isn't.
It's not shown in an interesting way. Like I say, the film has no interest in actually showing you that the world is different when you're small. Or anything like that, which on the one hand part of the theme, on the other hand should be in there somewhere.
Anyway, we've never looked at our watches so often in a film that I can remember.
Well, I don't wear a watch. I was just getting you to check yours.
Yes. So that indicates, I suppose, the scale of the problem. But let's not beat a dead horse, I think, kind of. Is there any last things you want to say?
I must emphasise that it was horrible.
Okay, I think we've got that.
A huge waste of time.
Okay.
I've seen, of Alexander Payne's previous films, I've seen Sideways.
No. I never got around to it.
Yeah, well, don't. Honestly, I mean, Sideways is a film that people absolutely adored.
Yes,
as I recall.
Yes, they did. And I have it somewhere.
And it's an absolute sort of middle class sort of just fucking going around drinking Pinot Grigio or whatever it popularised some grape. I think Pinot Noir maybe.
Right.
And it was all about just going around like Napa Valley drinking wine. Ugh.
Well, if you disagree with everything that Mike says, we have actually been receiving a lot of comments from all of you, or from many of you, and we really like receiving them, so do please feel free to comment. We're on Facebook, and we're on iTunes, and we're on SoundCloud, and we welcome your comments.
And Twitter.
And Twitter, yes.
On Twitter we're at Eavesdrop Movies. On Facebook, just search Eavesdropping at the Movies, and that's the same with iTunes, and you can email us at eavesdroppingatthemovies@gmail.com as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. But don't see Downsizing.
Or else.